How we doing? Welcome in to something new, something the same. We're hanging out here on CanesCentral. This is the Joe Gaither Show. We've done a segment or two with Justic Sandle on the Joe Gaither Show talking about the Miami Hurricanes, but today is the first standalone edition of the Joe Gaither Show on CanesCentral. You have been hearing some of our segments mixed into Alabama coverage on BamaCentral.com, but we're done with that. We're done contaminating the Miami coverage with the Alabama nonsense. It's all about the Hurricanes, the ACC, Mario Cristobal, and Jim Larinaga getting the Miami Hurricanes two programs going this season in 2024. So we're very excited for the inaugural edition of the Joe Gaither Show on CanesCentral with our friend and expert, Justic Sandle. Make sure you follow him at Justice_News5 on the Twitter machine. Make sure you're following all his coverage on CanesCentral, or you can find it on Miami Hurricanes on SI. It's an exciting time for South Florida, big week for South Florida, not Miami related specifically, University of Miami related specifically, but the Florida Panthers becoming Stanley Cup champions for the first time in franchise history. We'll just start right there, Justice. Did you take that in as a new kind of correspondent in the Miami area?
Look, I don't know much about hockey, but I've been trying to keep up with it now that the Panthers just won the Stanley Cup. Look, it's exciting over there. Miami's already a party city as is, but with this extra excitement, with another championship coming down the South Beach, I think now every major franchise has a championship in Miami now. So with that addition, it's fantastic getting to hear all the people just teaching me more about hockey and everything that goes on around it. It's fantastic.
Absolutely. And, this is not a hockey show, but just want to make a little local connection there. Vamos Gatos. That was and look, I'm not a hockey expert either. The end of Game 7 was absolutely. I had to pause Monday Night Raw and flip over to ABC for the last 10 minutes. And it was just like electric in that building. So excited for the Miami people who are excited about seeing their Panthers after 30-something years finally reach the mountaintop.
Absolutely.
Well, we want to talk Miami Hurricanes. We'll put the Panthers to bed. We appreciate their contributions there to the local area, but we're going to here to talk Hurricanes. And you guys can read all about the Miami Hurricanes on SI. Part of the Walsh Writing Network, also CanesCentral. And we've done a couple of episodes already with Justice. If you want to listen to those, they're tucked into the Bama Central episodes. We'll revisit some of those topics now that we're standing alone here on CanesCentral.com. But today is going to be about quarterbacks. Miami has an exciting transfer quarterback in Cam Ward out of Washington State. But as we look at the ACC, 17 schools in the ACC now, no more divisions. I wanted to pick Justice's brain about the rest of the quarterbacks and where Cam Ward stands up. Is he the top quarterback in the conference? Is he number 5, number 10, number 1, 3? We will place him among the 17 quarterbacks in the conference as the ACC is looking to fight for its position as still a Power 4 conference. Well, first thing right off the bat, we talked about it right before we went live, Justice, is and this applies to Cam Ward as well. What do you make about the ACC as a whole really dipping into the transfer portal for a majority of its signal callers in 2024?
I think that's something that they needed to do. Just take advantage of the portal because most players will want to go to an SEC school or a Big 10 school, even Big 12 with what football means to them. ACC is more of a basketball, baseball conference compared to football. But getting these top talents could start to revitalize what the ACC used to be and how powerful the ACC used to be in a football sense with the conferences. So I think it's a good thing that they're starting to dip their toe in the transfer portal. They are getting some top recruits in and out of there, but dipping their toe into the transfer portal. It's a lot of transfers from the Big 12, SEC, and other conferences too. So we'll see how it goes.
All right, so you got 17 schools in the ACC this year, and it's going to be a very interesting kind of contrast between East Coast and West Coast. So let's just start with so what do we want to do? We want to go 17-1, or we want to have any other specific conversations? What do you think about going 17-1, ranking our ACC quarterbacks this year?
I think 17-1 is good. Build the anticipation on what
All
they.
right. So you're the ACC expert. I'll follow along with you. We'll alternate. How about you go first and I'll go, and then I'll go first and then you'll go. How about that? So
Okay.
17, you'll start us with 17, and then I'll respond with my 17. We'll count it down. We'll see where Cam Ward lies when we end up with the number 1 overall quarterback. 17 for Justic Sandle.
17, Nate Uernall from Pitt. Now, what's really more to say about Pitt football? They haven't really been able to contrast and do what they needed to do over the past couple of years. Nate, he's a solid quarterback, but it's very inconsistent in the pocket and reading through his progressions. And it's going to be one of those things where you have to just continually to learn and get through the progressions. And that's just how it is.
All right, so I like that pick. We will differ when I get to my Pittsburgh quarterback. My 17 is going to be Fernando Mendoza out of Cal. Fernando Mendoza played in 9 games last year, 63% completion percentage, which is fine for college football. But look at his yards per attempt. He's only throwing the ball 7 yards on the field, barely pushing the ball down the field. Average yards per is 7.0. 14 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. If Cal is wanting to not be a bottom feeder this year in the ACC or in the future, Fernando Mendoza's got to play better as a sophomore. So that's going to be my number 17 quarterback in the ACC. I'll go 16, and then you'll respond with your 16. And my 16 is going to be we'll stick with another sophomore that struggled to push the ball down the field. Virginia quarterback Anthony Colandrea. Played in 8 games last year with right at a 63% completion percentage, only pushing the ball yards per attempt, 8 yards down the field, 13 touchdowns and 9 interceptions. The big theme for both these guys, Mendoza and Colandrea, is turning the football over. You can't win if you give the defense the football. So those two guys are my 17, and Anthony Colandrea is my 16th best quarterback in the ACC.
All right. So mine is similar to yours. I'm going to do 16 and 15 since they are the same player. So my 16 was Fernando Mendoza out of Cal. Like you said, turnover issues and just he's young. He'll have to progress and get into what he needs to do. But young, turnover issues, and that was one of the main issues that Cal suffered with last season, were their turnover issues. And at 15, I have Anthony Colandrea from Virginia, also another young player with heavy turnover issues. But he showed flashes of potential running outside the pocket and just getting into what he needs to do as he progresses as a quarterback.
All right, so we're on the same page almost so far, which, the bottom end, look. The bottom end of the ACC is all opinion at this point because a lot of it is young player and untapped potential and unknowns. My number 15 is someone that I'm familiar with in the Tuscaloosa area. We're going to go out on a limb and say Nate Uernall is not going to start for Pitt. I'm going to go with Eli Holstein. Eli Holstein transferring from Alabama to Pitt. And I think that really he has a chance to win the starting job based on what you said about Nate Uernall struggling with turnovers and not really being that efficient. I think Eli Holstein is going to really have a chance to start. And, I don't think Pittsburgh's going to win the ACC, but at the end of the year, he may look a whole lot better than the number 15 overall quarterback in the conference. My number 14 is going to go with Ashton Daniels. Ashton Daniels out of Stanford. So, again, a newcomer to the conference, and Ashton Daniels struggling a bit with turnover issues last year again, and also struggling to push the ball down the field. 7 yards per attempt, 11 touchdowns, and 8 interceptions in his 12 games for Stanford. Not really that good, not really that strong, and the Stanford Cardinals struggled for it. So I'm going with Eli Holstein, 15, and I'm going with Ashton Daniels at 14 from Stanford.
All right. So my 14 is also Ashton Daniels. Like you said, turnover problems, 8 interceptions, only 11 touchdowns, 2,000 yards for throwing. It's not really going to do it, especially in the Pac-12 conference where offense is such a big thing. And him not getting that done, transitioning over to the ACC, it's just not going to get it done. Now, at 13, I have Max Johnson for UNC. I know that he transferred over from A&M, and he just didn't flash the way that you want him to flash moving over. And I don't think that he'll continue to do that. Plus, with the loss of Drake May and what Drake May was doing for university, things just didn't seem to the transition over. I don't think it'll be as fluid as many might hope.
All right, so we like that. Max Johnson, he's going to appear on my list a little bit later. What am I at? I'm at 13 and 12. That's what we're doing right here. 13 and 12. 13, we will go with Hank Bachmeier. Hank Bachmeier transferred to what? Wake Forest? Out of Boise State and Louisiana Tech. My man has been in college for what's this? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years already. And has a career completion percentage of 63%. That seems to be a popular number for a lot of these bottom feeders. And again, not pushing the football down the field, 7.6 yards per attempt for his career. And, better year sort of for Louisiana Tech last year, but still 10 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. I think that he's going to be able to, Jim Clausen for Wake Forest. I think he's going to get a lot out of him, but I still think that he's going to be a big old question mark, over there at Wake Forest. My number 12, we're going way up the East Coast, Thomas Castellanos. Thomas Castellanos, a very, very good athlete. And he's also another transfer quarterback. He started at UCF. He was at Boston College last year. He's played in he played in the 13 games. Again, not pushing the football down the field and not taking care of the ball. 15 touchdowns and 14 interceptions. You're going to have to clean that up under Bill O'Brien. I think that Bill O'Brien will ultimately put him into better positions this year, but you've got to clean the turnovers up if the Boston College Eagles are going to go back to a bowl game. Yeah. You're at 12 and 11, right?
Absolutely. So my 12, mine is similar to yours, just a bit disordered. Hank Bachmeier for number 12 at Wake Forest. Like you said, it's year 6 in the college program, transferring to, I believe this is his third school now. He just has to play at a consistent pace. Wake Forest isn't really the best football school to be playing for anyway. They have a good defense, but most of their offensive talent, while they're returning, not much of that production is also going to be the same. Most of their production was from freshmen last year, and then most of them transferred out and just won't be consistent. My 11 is Thomas Castanello. Like you said, 14 interceptions. That is just not good enough. 15 touchdowns, but his potential for what he can do and his speed and the way he's able to run the ball, that is something to be excited about. And under Bill O'Brien, who played with and coached players like Deshaun Watson and players like that, Castanello has some of those similarities to a Watson, so maybe he can bring out the best of what he can do for the Boston College Eagles.
Okay, so I'm at 11 and 10 now as we count it down and start to get into some better quality. I'm going to go with 11. I'll go with Tyler Shaw. Yeah. Tyler Shaw transfer into Louisville. And, man, all these transfers. He's been at Oregon. He's been at Texas Tech. My man's has been in college for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years already. In 6 seasons, you're averaging, 63% completion. And, obviously, Texas Tech is throwing the football all around. But still not really that great as far as a touchdown to interception. 7 touchdowns, 4 interceptions last year for Texas Tech. I do think that Louisville will kind of put him into better positions. We'll see if he can basically support the defense. The Louisville defense gonna be probably their strong suit. We'll see if he can support the defense. I'll go with Tyler Shaw with my number 10. But my number 9 is someone I'm more familiar with. I'm going with Max Johnson, number 9. Max Johnson transferring from Texas A&M and LSU. It just seems like a big theme in the ACC this year is old quarterbacks. And Miami has themselves an old quarterback as well. Not necessarily a bad thing, but Justice, I'm kind of the opinion, and please correct me or jump in here. I'm kind of the opinion, if you're that good, if you're a quality player, you're only in college for 3 to 4 years and you're bouncing on out of here. So these old guys are just hanging on. They're just hanging on and taking advantage of the scholarship, trying to drum up some NIL. I think Max Johnson is doing the same at North Carolina after spending 2 seasons at LSU and 2 seasons at Texas A&M.
See, I agree with you to an extent. Now, some players, they have injuries and they can't help but stay that extra couple of years. But like someone like a Cameron Ward, he was in that draft process last year, and he decided to come back just to see if he can get some more experience because he probably wasn't going to get drafted that high last in this previous year's NFL draft. This season, comparing what the quarterback class looks like for this season compared to last season, he has a higher chance to get drafted higher, maybe earn some more money than what he's already earning now in NIL. But for my number 10 and 9, I have Tyler Show from Louisville. Like you said, very inconsistent for what he was doing. The turnovers, not really pushing the ball down the field. Things just, for Louisville, their main thing is going to be their defense. As long as he is able to get the ball to where he needs to get the ball and hand the ball off to who he needs to hand the ball off, it shouldn't be really any issues. But if he's forced to make some actions and make some plays, big things can happen for the opposing team. Now, my number 9 is the Texas transfer, Malik Murphy, playing for Duke. So with him, he didn't really get a chance to play that much. Well, you have Quinn Ewers and now Arch Manning over there as the 1-2 punch for Texas. He had no reason to possibly stay for Texas, so he transferred to Duke, and he's likely going to be the starter for his sophomore year. Now, last season, he threw for 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, only for about 500 yards. But his arm talent is exponential, and that's one of the main things and positive things about him is his arm talent. So doing that, going in there into a Duke program that is on the up and rise for football, I think that can be an exciting thing for Malik Murphy.
All right, you must be reading off my notes because my number 9 as well was Malik Murphy. I think that he's a player that there's a big question mark. I don't want to put him too low because I think he has a huge arm, and I think he has a lot of talent. But I don't want to put him too high because there are guys in the ACC that have a better resume, a better career resume. But at the end of the year, if we do this again in December, I think Malik Murphy might be pushing for that top 4 spot. I think he could surprise a lot of people. But subsequently, if he's a little bit wild and doesn't play so well, he could fall down in that 13-14 range. So I'm going with Malik Murphy as my number 9. I feel like that's a nice, safe spot. Number 8 is an Elite 11, I think a winner. I think Cade Klubnik won Elite 11 his year out, his high school season. But he was brought in, lots of hype, lots of talent. Obviously, Dabo Swinney pushed out another ACC quarterback in order to play Cade Klubnik. But just a little bit of inconsistency last year. 19 touchdowns, that's good. 9 interceptions, not so hot. Only 6.3 yards per attempt, so we talk about pushing the ball down the field. He's not really testing defenses down the field quite in his freshman and sophomore year, but I have Cade Klubnik coming in at number 6, and if Clemson is going to have a resurgence, I think Cade Klubnik needs to have a really strong year as a junior for Dabo Swinney.
Okay, we are at 8 and 7 for me. So right now at my 8 is Cade Klubnik. Like you said, inconsistent in his first year, but there are upsides to what he can do and what he should be able to do following into his junior season. I know that they did push out DJ Uiagalelei just to get Cade Klubnik in and played to where he needs to play, but it was very inconsistent for the quarterback, and I think that'll be one of the things that he has to focus on for next season. I know that number 7, I have the new transfer, Kyle McCord. Now, I'm not high on Kyle McCord. I think he was a Marvin Harrison Jr. merchant on the summer. But that still doesn't say that he doesn't have a good arm and he's very consistent with what he needs to do. 24 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, over 3,000 yards, and he had over 9 yards per attempt. But Marvin Harrison Jr. is Marvin Harrison Jr. If you're throwing to Marvin Harrison Jr., you should be one of the best quarterbacks in the country. But against big teams, against big games, he was very inconsistent. Look at that Penn State game. Look at the Michigan game. Against those top-level defenses, he was very inconsistent for what he needed to do. So that's where I have him.
All right, so I'm at 7 and 6. I think is where I'm at. So it's 7, and we're seeing similar lists, but just a little disagreement here, which is a-okay on the Joe Gaither Show on CanesCentral with my friend Justic Sandle. You can follow him at Justice_Sandle5. I'm going with Kyron Drones, another transfer quarterback. This guy is coming from Baylor to Virginia Tech. He was at Virginia Tech last year and put up 2,000 yards passing. And look, his touchdown interception ratio is really good. 17 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and was able to cash in 5 more touchdowns on the ground. I just don't have him higher than 7 due to the talent around him. I think that he's going to need a little bit more help at Virginia Tech. Now, Virginia Tech is, had a better year last year. We all know that their history, they have a very strong history. We'll see if they can get back to, top of the ACC conference. I think Kyron Drones also fits in the Malik Murphy category where he could end up in the top 3 quarterbacks, top 4 quarterbacks in the conference, or maybe struggle with some regression this year. So I think 7 right there, almost in the middle, a little higher than the middle, is a nice place to land Kyron Drones. Now 6, I'm going with your Marvin Harrison Jr. merchant, Kyle McCord. I think you're spot on with that he was helped out by Marvin Harrison Jr. And it's very interesting. If you're getting pushed out by Ohio State, I think, and you're landing at Syracuse. Maybe I'm a conspiracy. Maybe I'm reading too many tea leaves, but I think that kind of shows you what Ryan Day really thinks of you. 24 touchdowns, 6 interceptions last year for Kyle McCord, but was the competition that great? Yes, it's the Big Ten, but you're driving a Ferrari at Ohio State. You're driving a Ferrari, keep it on the road, you're going to look good. I think that kind of plays into playing quarterback at Ohio State. We'll see what he looks like behind the wheel of what's a suboptimal car that I don't want to make I don't want to make people mad, car geeks, but he's driving a lesser car. He's not in a Ferrari or a Maserati this year.
It's like a Lexus or something like that.
All right, he's in a Lexus. Perfect. Give us your 6 and your 5 as we get into the top 5 here on the Joe Gaither Show on CanesCentral.
All right, so my 6 is Preston Stone from SMU, the new addition. He had 28 touchdowns, only 6 interceptions. QBR wasn't really the best, and his completion percentage is not really the best, sitting at 60%, but he is very, very consistent with where he needs to go with the ball, when he needs to get the ball, where he needs to get it to. Now, he's one of the best runners also with that SMU offense, and I think that that'll be one of the most interesting things when coming into the ACC now that SMU has this new, I would say, expectations with the new conference. Now it's only a Power 4. So that's my 6. My 5 is Kyron Jones from Virginia Tech. His upside and his potential is fantastic for what he can do and what he will be able to do. Like you said, very great touchdown to interception ratio. And even though he might be inconsistent at some points and times, I think that he is still one of the best quarterbacks inside the ACC. I have him in my top 5, and Virginia Tech might be one of those scary teams this year that could be because of him and what he's able to do.
All right, so we're getting into the top 5 on each of us, and I think you're really getting into some really strong quarterbacks. I think the ACC is kind of broken into some tiers here, Justin. When you get 1 through 6, maybe you're getting into some really strong quarterback play. 7 through 10, 11. I think you've got guys that have a lot of potential, and then 11 on down to 17. I think you're really struggling to find consistent quarterback play. I'm going to go number 5 with you, with Preston Stone, the SMU quarterback. Last year, over 3,000 yards passing, 28 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. There will be a step up in competition from the American Conference into the ACC, and I think that will be a little bit of a struggle for him, but I'm going to agree with you with number 5, Preston Stone. Number 4 is another look. ACC has a lot of Texas A&M transfers. You go in with 2. Oh, it's a lot. A couple Texas A&M transfers. I'm going to go with Haynes King, the Georgia Tech quarterback. Haynes King transferred from A&M to Georgia Tech last season, and in the ACC, he puts up 2,800 yards passing, 27 touchdowns, but way too many interceptions, 16 interceptions. If he can bring that number down, maybe the Yellow Jackets become a contender in the ACC.
True, that's true. Well, I'm going to have to disagree with you there just a little bit. Number 4, I have Grayson McCall, the Coastal Carolina transfer, now at NC State. Now, last season wasn't really his best, only 10 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and under 2,000 yards. But for what he was able to do in his previous years at Coastal Carolina, leading the team into multiple top 25 teams, leading them in that category. And even with his completion percentage, he's above 65%. Last season was at 67%, but his previous 2 seasons, he was above and close to that 70 range. So he's a very accurate quarterback. He's going to get the ball where it needs to go. But the thing is, with the step up in competition from Coastal Carolina now going to the ACC, things are going to be very different in the coverages that he sees. So I have him in my top 4. And number 3, I have DJ Uiagalelei. Now, I know a lot of people will have him at that 1 or 2 position right next to Cam Ward, but I understand that Oregon State put him in a better position than Clemson did, with surrounding him with talent and playing in more towards his play style. And maybe Florida State will also be able to do that, but they have also lost a lot of key players into the NFL draft. And he's on the older side as well, like you were saying, with the Max Johnsons and those lower tier quarterbacks. They're very old and they're getting up there in age. And if you were at that level, you would probably already be drafted up until this point. But he's bounced around from team to team, and now he's returning to the ACC. So I have him at my number 3 position.
Okay, so here we are at the number 3, 2, 1. I'm going with Grayson McCall, number 3. I'm going with Grayson McCall. I think that he has a lot of ability, but again, he's been in college forever and ever and ever. I think that he's going to have a really strong season. Will it translate to NFL success? I don't think so. I think you would have already gone, but maybe a year in the Power 4, a great year in the Power 4 puts him into the upper echelon. He's going to have to bounce back from last year where he only played in 7 games. He's going to have that 2021, 2022 season if he's going to really stand out, stand out for NC State. So I'm going to put him at number 3. And number 2, all right, don't break your hearts, but I'm putting Cam Ward behind DJ Uiagalelei. Maybe I just think that DJU with his experience factor in the ACC already, and going to Florida State. Don't crucify me, but a little bit better program right now than Miami. I think that his supporting cast is going to benefit him more than Cam Ward. But I think that when you talk about these top 3, and now that it's kind of revealed, you can go ahead and reveal your number 1 is
Cam Ward. My number 1 is yes.
And why are you putting him number 1? And we'll just talk about it and round this bad boy out.
Well, first off, I have my number 2 is Haynes King from Georgia Tech. Now, many people might not say he was very consistent from what he did last year compared to what he was doing at the previous school, but he was one of the only other quarterbacks outside of Jaden Daniels to rush for over 10 rushing touchdowns and 25 passing touchdowns. That's only him and Jaden Daniels, and Jaden Daniels won the Heisman. So that's why I have Haynes King as my number 2. But for number 1, Cameron Ward, it's just his arm talent is impeccable. The way he threw the ball last season was very incredible. The accuracy, what he was able to do in his ball placement, even though he doesn't run the ball as often as most people might assume that he runs the ball, he has that ability to break off and has takeoff speed. The other thing is that he was 5th in passing yards in game in the entire nation last season. That was only behind those top picks in the NFL draft in Caleb Williams, Michael Penix Jr., Bo Nix, and Jaden Daniels. So I believe that Cameron Ward, he was the best player out of the transfer portal and coming into Miami, and where they needed a quarterback, and him being one of the best quarterbacks with his statistics. I think that's why he's number 1.
All right, so we've got what? Cam Ward for you, DJ Uiagalelei for me as the number 1 overall quarterback in the ACC. But number 2, you've got Haynes King. I've got Cam Ward. I think these top 4 are pretty much interchangeable as we sit here June 26th. Which player is out of these top 4, DJ Uiagalelei, Cam Ward, Graham McCall, Haynes King, who's going to be maybe meaning the most to their offense as far as, okay, if the season is successful for NC State, Grayson McCall goes 3,400 yards. If the season is successful for Haynes King, he goes under 5 interceptions, under 6 interceptions. If the season is successful for Miami, what does Cam Ward do to put them into that ACC championship picture?
That's an interesting question right there. Cam Ward, I think he doesn't have to do too much because of the talent that's surrounding him, because of Damian Martinez that's coming in from Oregon State that played with DJ Uiagalelei, who also helped him take a lot of pressure off of what DJ was doing at Oregon State. That'll be one of those things. I think that it will be DJ because he has to perform the way that he needs to perform for that Florida State team, because they were the ACC champions last year. I think that's going to be the same expectation that they want. Again, they want to get there, and plus now that this the expanded playoff system, that win will put them in the playoffs this year. So what will he be able to do if they get to the playoffs, and will he be able to perform with that top talent? Now, he's had experience in the ACC and the Pac-12, coming back to the ACC when maybe that new offensive mindset that he had in the Pac-12 that could unlock a lot of things for what he was able to do and not able to do for Clemson. So I think for DJU, it might be him.
Well, we'll keep watching it. We'll get ready for the season. We're 64, 65, 66 days away, depending on when you guys are listening or watching this program on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Amazon, or watching us on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. We've had a lot of fun hanging out with Justic Sandle, ranking ACC quarterbacks for CanesCentral and for Miami Hurricanes on SI. Make sure you follow Justic Sandle at Justice_News5. Justic, what you going to be working on this week for Miami Hurricanes on SI?
Well, we have the NBA draft tonight, and one of our players, Keyshawn George, is likely to be a first-round draft pick, looking around that 15 to 20 range for where he's going to go. So very excited about where he's going to be placed. And then just getting into some recruiting. They're getting a lot of 5-star, 4-star talent coming in throughout the building, and try and get those last few commitments in before the season starts to get rolling.
Thanks so much for your time, Justice. We will pay attention to CanesCentral and Miami Hurricanes on SI right here on the Joe Gaither Show on CanesCentral. Thanks for your time. We'll catch up with you next week.
Thank you.
Absolutely. We appreciate Justic Sandle joining us, and that's going to do it for our inaugural episode of the Joe Gaither Show on CanesCentral. We appreciate you subscribing, rating, reviewing us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Amazon. We've done these segments before on prior podcasts, but now we're standing alone on each website. So we appreciate Justic Sandle and all the contributors for Miami Hurricanes on SI for joining us, and we'll be back to talk more Miami Hurricanes next week.